baiting Warfield into an outburst that might prove the objection. But the judge seemed to compose herself before responding. "Your running objection is noted, but overruled," she said calmly. "If counsel's statement is intended to try to inflame or intimidate the court, be assured that you have failed in the effort, and that the court will continue to make rulings impartially and independently, based on the law and applied to the case." Warfield paused there to see if Berg had another comeback, but the prosecutor remained silent. "Now, is there any other business to discuss?" Warfield asked. "I would like to get this order out and then have some lunch." "Your Honor," Maggie said, "we have lost our main witness for today, and who was that?" Warfield asked. "Louis Operizio," Maggie said. "Was the subpoena delivered?" Warfield asked. "Yes, it was," Maggie said. "Then why isn't he here?" Warfield asked. "He was murdered," Maggie said. "His body was found yesterday." "What?" the judge yelped. "Yes," Maggie said, "in Arizona." "And does this have anything to do with this case?" Warfield asked. "We think so, Your Honor," Maggie said. "Which is why you need the FBI to come in and testify," Warfield said. "Yes, Your Honor," Maggie said. "And other than Operizio, we had only one other witness scheduled for today, Detective Roundtree, whom you disallowed." "Are you saying you have no other witnesses to your case?" Warfield asked. "We have only one, Mr. Haller," Maggie said. "And we don't want him to testify until after we possibly hear from the FBI and Agent Ruth. He would be our last witness." Warfield looked pained. She clearly didn't want to lose the afternoon. "I seem to recall more names on your witness list," she said. "That is true, but the course of the trial has dictated changes to our strategy," I said. "We've dropped some witnesses just this morning. We had a toxicology expert good to go today, but Detective Drucker and the deputy medical examiner already covered the same ground. We had the landlord on subpoena, but Detective Drucker covered her information as well." "I seem to recall you had a bartender on your list," Warfield said. I hesitated. We had described Moira Benson on the witness list as someone who would testify to my not drinking at the NG celebration and being totally sober when I left it, but that had been a disguise to hide the real value of her testimony. What she had actually been going to tell the jury was that she had gotten a phone call at the Redwood on the night of the party, and an anonymous caller had asked whether I had left yet. At the time, I had paid the tab and was moving toward the door, slowed by handshakes and thank yous from the well-wishers who had gotten their nightly alcohol intake on me. She told the caller I was heading to the door. Under the defense theory, that call resulted in a text to Milton, alerting him that I was leaving. But now, with the cell records we had received, we couldn't complete the 1-2 punch the defense had hoped for. It didn't mean it didn't happen that way. The cell records could have been doctored, or Milton could have gotten a text on a burner. But we couldn't move the supposition from theory to fact, and I couldn't put the bartender on the stand. "Her testimony is also unneeded, based on recent records we acquired," I said. The judge thought for a moment and decided not to inquire any further about the bartender. "So, all you have left is the FBI, which we don't know about, and Mr. Haller," she said. "And it would really change our strategy if he had to testify before we heard from Agent Ruth," Maggie said. "If we hear from Agent Ruth," Warfield said. "Judge, this is ridiculous," Berg said. "They had no strategy. This whole thing about Ruth came up today." "Counsel is wrong," Maggie said. "The FBI has been on our radar from the start, and we always planned to end with Mr. Haller's forceful denial of the charge. We would like to keep it that way." "Very well," Warfield said. "I'm going to let the jury go for the day. Hopefully tomorrow we will hear from the FBI, and then the defendant. Either way, you would all be advised to use the time we are not in session this afternoon to work on closing arguments. You may be giving them tomorrow afternoon. Judge, we will be introducing evidence in rebuttal, Berg said, and possibly a witness, depending on tomorrow's testimony. That will be your prerogative, Warfield said. I noticed that Berg had stopped addressing Warfield as Your Honor. I wondered if the judge noticed too. I think we are done here, Warfield said. I will see everyone back in court at 1 o'clock, when I will dismiss the jury. Moving back to the courtroom, through the hallway outside the judge's chambers, I walked up behind Berg, who was leading the way this time. You knew Operizio was dead before we went in there, I said. If it was all just a choreographed attempt to distract the jury, why were you so on top of him? Because I can see you coming from a mile away, Haller, Berg responded. And we were ready for Operizio, dead or alive. You obviously were not. She kept walking at speed, and I slowed down so Maggie could catch up. What was that about? She asked. Nothing, I said. Just more bullshit. So, what do you think our chances are with the writ? Getting an agent on the stand? Maggie said. Somewhere between 0 and 0. I think this is going to come down to you up there and winning the jury over. So be ready and be at your best. We walked in silence after that. I knew that whatever the risks were that lay ahead, they were all on me. Chapter 50. With the jury sent home and the courtroom dark, Maggie McPherson and I were allowed to work in the attorney-client room in courtside holding until it was time for my private shuttle back to Twin Towers. We got a lot done. Rather than focus, as the judge had suggested, on a closing argument, we worked on questions for the final 2 witnesses, Special Agent Don Ruth and me. And this was most critical with Agent Ruth, because it was the questions that would most likely contain the information we wanted to get to the jury. We anticipated that if we were lucky enough to get Ruth on the stand, she would at best be a reluctant witness. We wouldn't ask, was Sam Scales an FBI informant? We would ask, how long was Sam Scales an FBI informant? That way, the jurors would get the information we needed them to hear, whether or not the actual questions were answered. It was agreed that I would question Ruth if she responded to the judge's writ, and Maggie would, of course, question me. She convinced me during the work session that I had to testify. Once past that hurdle, I embraced the idea and started thinking about the questions and answers we were composing together. I stayed in my suit as we worked, not wanting to spend that time with Maggie in prisoner's garb. It was a little thing, and she probably didn't even care, but I did. Besides our daughter, she had always been the most important woman in my life, and I cared what she thought of me. I knew there was a camera on us the whole time, and touching was forbidden, but at one point, I couldn't help myself. I reached across the table and put my hand on hers, as she was trying to write down one of the questions she would ask me the next day. Maggie, thank you, I said. No matter what happens, you are here for me, and it has meant more than you'll ever know. Well, she said, let's get the NG, as you like to call it, and everything will be all right. I withdrew my hand, but it was too late. A voice came from the speaker box next to the camera and told me not to touch her again. I acted like I didn't even hear it. Still thinking about going back to the DA's office after this? I asked. Now that you've seen behind the curtain of high-stakes defense work? I was smiling good-naturedly, wanting to take a small break. I don't know, she said. I'm sure the bosses are getting a steady diet of complaints about me from Dana. The well may be poisoned, especially when we win. Maybe I could get used to sticking it to the man. She said it with full sarcasm, but she smiled, and I smiled back. At 4 p.m., I got a 15-minute heads-up from Deputy Chan that I was being moved to the shuttle, and I had to lose the suit. Maggie said she was going to go. When you get out of here, call Cisco, I told her. Get a copy of the video with the room service guy in Arizona and bring it to court tomorrow. We might need it. Good idea, she said. 20 minutes later, I was in the back of a cruiser being driven to Twin Towers by Deputy Presley. He took the normal route from the courthouse, crossing the 101 freeway on Main Street and dropping down Cesar Chavez Avenue to Vignes Street. But at Vignes, instead of turning left toward Boucher Street and the jail, he turned right. Presley, what's up? I said. Where are we going? He didn't answer. Presley, I repeated. What's going on? Just calm down, Presley said. You'll find out soon enough. But his answer didn't calm me. Instead, high concern gripped me. The stories about sheriff's deputies committing or orchestrating atrocities in the jails had permeated the local justice system. Nothing was unimaginable. But fact or fiction, the stories all took place inside the jail, where the situations were controlled and unseen by outside witnesses. Presley was taking me away from the jail, and we were driving behind the Union Station railway complex, bouncing over tracks, and entering a maintenance yard where the workers had punched out at 5 sharp. Presley, come on, man, I said. You don't have to do this. I thought we had an understanding. You told me to watch my back. Why are you doing this? I was leaning forward, as far as the seatbelt and the cuff lock between my legs would allow me. I saw a slight smile crack across his face, and I realized he had played me. He wasn't a sympathizer. He was one of them. Who put you up to this, Presley? I demanded. Was it Berg? Who? Again, only silence from my abductor. Presley pulled the car into an open work bay, covered with a corrugated and rusted metal roof. He then hit the release on the rear door locks and got out of the car. I tracked him as he walked around the front of the car, but he stopped there and looked back at me through the windshield. I was puzzled. Was he going to pull me out or what? The rear door across from me opened, and I turned to see Special Agent Don Ruth slide onto the plastic seat next to me. Agent Ruth, I blurted out. What the fuck is going on? Calm down, Haller, she said. I'm here to talk. I turned and looked through the windshield again at Presley. I realized I had read him completely wrong just now. And I should ask you the same question, Ruth said. What the fuck is going on? I looked back at her, regaining some of my composure and cool. You know what's going on, I said. What do you want? First of all, this conversation didn't happen, she said. If at any time you try to say it did, I will have 4 agents ready to alibi me and you will look like a liar. Fine. What exactly is the conversation? Your judge is out of control. Ordering me to appear to testify? That's not going to happen. Fine. Don't show up. Then you can read about it in the Times. But if you ask me, that's no way to keep an investigation under wraps. And you think testifying in open court is? Look, if you cooperate, we can choreograph your testimony. We can protect what you need to protect. But I need to get on the record that Sam Scales was an informant and Louis Operizio found out and had him whacked. Even if that's not what happened. I looked at her for a long moment before responding. If that's not what happened, then what did? I finally asked. Think about it, she said. If Operizio thought Sam was an informant, would he still go on running the scam at BioGreen? Or would he have killed Sam and closed up shop? Okay, so you're saying the scam's been ongoing even after Sam got killed. So the Bureau's operation is also ongoing. I tried to put it together, but couldn't. Why was Sam killed? I asked. You probably knew him better than anybody, Ruth said. Why do you think? It clicked. He was running his own scam, I said. On the Bureau and Operizio. What was it? Ruth hesitated. She was steeped in a culture that never gave away secrets. But now is the time. In a conversation that would and could be denied. He was running a skim, Ruth said. We found out after he was dead. He secretly started his own oil distro company, incorporated, registered with the government. He was running tankers back and forth to the port, but half the subsidies were going to him. I nodded. The story was easy to pick up from there. Operizio found out and had to whack him, I said. He didn't want an investigation to come to Bio Green, and he saw an opportunity to settle a score with me. And I'm not going to testify to any of this, she said. There's no reason not to. Operizio is dead, in case you didn't hear. You think Operizio was in charge of this? You think he was the target? He was running one operation. We're watching 6 refineries in 4 states, ongoing operations. Operizio wasn't giving the orders, he was following them. And that's why it was easy for them to decide he had to go. His freelancing vendetta with you showed poor business judgment, and that's not tolerated by these people. At all. You think he snuck off to Arizona to avoid a subpoena? Don't be silly. He was hiding from them, not you. You were watching him too? I didn't say that. Through the windshield, I could see Presley pacing in front of the car. I had a feeling that we were on a clock. This was an unsanctioned stop. Does he work for you too? I asked. Presley? Or do you have something on him? Don't worry about him, Ruth said. My thoughts returned to my own situation. So what am I supposed to do? I said. Sacrifice myself? Take a conviction so your case goes on? That's crazy. You're crazy if you think I'll do that. We had hoped that our investigation would be at the arrest phase before your case even made it to court, she said. We would then square it, but that didn't happen. You refused to delay the case. A lot of things that were supposed to happen didn't. No fucking kidding. Let me ask you one thing. Were you watching when they killed Sam? Did you guys just let it happen to protect your case? We would never let something like that happen, especially just to protect a case. They grabbed him inside the refinery. We had nobody else inside. We didn't know he was dead until the LAPD ran his prints after finding his body in your trunk. Through the windshield, I saw Presley start signaling to Ruth. He pointed to his watch and then twirled a finger in the air. He was telling her to wrap it up. When we were crossing the 101 earlier, he had used the cruiser's radio to report that he was moving his prisoner to Twin Towers. It wouldn't be long before they noticed we had not arrived. So, why didn't you just go to the LAPD or the DA's office and lay this all out? I asked. You could have told them just to back off me, and none of this would have happened. That would have been a little difficult to do with Sam being found in your trunk, in your garage, and the media storm that followed, Ruth said. This whole thing has been an unavoidable clusterfuck from the start. And you ended up with a guilty conscience. That's why you slipped the Ventura arrest report under my door. I'm not saying I did that. You don't have to. But thank you. Ruth opened her door. So what happens tomorrow? I asked. She looked back at me. I have no idea, she said. It's out of my hands, that's for sure. She exited and closed the door, then walked off to the rear, and I didn't bother to turn to watch her go. Presley quickly got in behind the wheel. He backed out of the work bay and headed out of the yard the way we had come in. Sorry, Presley, I said. I panicked before and read you wrong. Not the first time that's been done, he said. You an agent or just working with them? Think I'd tell you? Probably not. So, if anything comes up at the towers about us being late, I'm going to say I pulled over because you were getting sick. I nodded. I'll back that up, I said. They won't even ask you, he said. We were back on Vignes Street. Through the windshield, I could see Twin Towers up ahead. Chapter 51. Thursday, February 27th. In the morning, they woke me early and put me in the escort cruiser before 8 o'clock. No one at the jail told me why. Presley, you know why I'm going over so early? I asked. Court won't even be open for an hour. Not a clue, Presley said. They just told me to get you there. Any fallout from the little detour home last night? What detour? I nodded and looked out the window. I hoped that whatever this was, Maggie McPherson had been alerted. When we got to the courthouse, I was passed off to a runner who took me into the locked-down elevator and used a key to operate it. That was when I began to fill in the blanks. I was usually taken to the 9th floor, where Judge Warfield's courtroom was located. The runner turned the key next to the button for the 18th floor. Every trial lawyer in the city knew that the main district attorney's office was located on the 18th floor of the criminal courts building. Off the elevator, I was ushered into a locked interview room that I assumed was used to interview criminal suspects when they agreed to cooperate. It was not a good practice to let agreements like that sit. People change their minds, both criminal suspects and lawyers. If somebody facing a tough charge or a tough sentence makes the quiet offer in court to provide substantial assistance to authorities, you don't set up an appointment for the next day. You take them upstairs and extract whatever information there is to extract. And it happened in the room that I was now sitting in. Handcuffed to a waist chain and still in my blues, I sat in the room alone for 15 minutes before I started staring up to the camera in the corner of the ceiling and yelling that I wanted to see my lawyer. This drew no response for another 5 minutes, and then the door opened and the runner was there. He escorted me down a hall and through a door. I entered what looked like a boardroom, most likely where policy was set and prosecutors and supervisors discussed big cases. 10 tall-back chairs stood around a large oval table, and most of them were occupied. I was led to an open seat next to Maggie McPherson. I either recognized most of the people gathered around the table or could guess who they were. On one side sat Dana Berg, along with her bow-tied second, as well as John Big John Kelly, the district attorney, and Matthew Scallon, who I knew to be Berg's boss and head of the Major Crimes Unit. In that capacity, he had also formerly been Maggie's boss until they moved her to the Environmental Protection Unit. Lined up across the table from the state prosecutors were the feds. I saw Agent Ruth and her partner, Rick Aiello, along with the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California, Wilson Corbett, and another man whom I did not recognize, but assumed was a mid-level prosecutor, most likely overseeing the BioGreen investigation. Mr. Haller, welcome, Kelly said. How are you today? I looked at Maggie before answering, and she gave me a slight shake of her head. It was enough for me to understand that she did not know what this was about either. I just spent another night in your wonderful accommodations at Twin Towers, I said. How do you think I feel, Big John? Kelly nodded, like he knew that would be my response. Well, we think we have some good news for you then, Kelly said. If we can come to an agreement on some things here, we're going to drop the case against you. You could sleep in your own bed tonight. How would that be? I took a scan of the faces in the room, beginning with Maggie's. She looked surprised. Dana Berg looked mortified, and Rick Aiello looked the way he did the last time I had seen him on my front porch. Angry. Dismissed? I asked. A jury has been sworn in. Jeopardy has attached. Kelly nodded. Correct, he said. You cannot be retried under the double jeopardy clause. No do-overs. It's done. Over. And what are the things we would have to come to an agreement on? I asked. I'll let Mr. Corbett take that one, Kelly said. I knew little about Corbett, other than that he'd had no experience as a prosecutor before being appointed U.S. Attorney by the current president. We have a situation, he said. We have an ongoing investigation that reaches far deeper than you know. It doesn't end with Louis Operizio, but to expose even a small part of it in a court case would imperil the larger case. We need you to agree to be silent until the larger case is completed and adjudicated. And when will that be? Maggie asked. We don't know, Corbett said. It is ongoing. That is all I can tell you. So, how would this work? I asked. Charges are just dropped without explanation. Kelly took back the floor. I was staring at Dana Berg as he spoke. We would move to dismiss the charges as contrary to the public interest, he said. We will state that the district attorney's office has come into information and evidence that casts grave doubt on the validity and justice of our case. What that information and evidence is will remain confidential as part of an ongoing investigation. That's it, I said. That's all you say? What about her? What does Dana say? She's been calling me a murderer for 4 months. We want to draw as little attention to this as possible, Kelly said. We can't grandstand this and still protect the federal investigation. Berg was staring down at the table in front of her. I could tell she was not down with this plan. She was a true believer in her case until the end. So that's the deal, I said. Charges dropped, but I can never say why, and you people never say you were wrong. No one responded. You think you're making an accommodation, I said. You think this is a deal where you let a murderer walk for the greater good. We're not passing judgment, Kelly said. We know you have information that could be detrimental to the greater good should it come out. I pointed to Dana Berg. She is, I said. She passed judgment when she put me in jail. She thinks I killed Sam Scales. You all do. You don't know what I think, Holler, Berg said. I pass, I said. What? Kelly said. Maggie put her hand on my arm to try to stop me. I said, I pass, I responded. Take me down to court. I'll take my chances with the jury. I get a not guilty from them, and I'm clean and clear. And I can tell the whole world how I was set up right under the FBI's nose and then railroaded by the DA's office. I like that deal better. I used my legs to start pushing my chair back and turned to look for the deputy who had brought me in. What do you want, Holler? Corbett asked. I looked back at him. What do I want? I said. I want my innocence back. I want it said that your new information and evidence clearly exonerates me of this charge. I want either you, Big John, or Dana to say that. First in a motion to the court, then to the judge in open court, and then I want it at the press conference on the courthouse steps. If you can't give me that, then I'll get it from the jury, and we have nothing to talk about. Kelly looked across the table at his federal counterpart. I saw the nod and the transmission of approval. I think we can accommodate that, Kelly said. Berg leaned back abruptly, as though she had been slapped across the face. Good, I said, because that's not all. Jesus Christ, Aiello said. I want 2 more things, I said, ignoring Aiello and looking directly at Kelly. I want no backlash on my co-counsel. She goes back to work for you after this. No pay cut, no job change. That was already going to be the case, Kelly said. Maggie is one of our best, and great, I said. Then it won't be a problem for you to put it in writing. Michael, Maggie said, I don't know. I want it in writing, I said. I want all of this in writing. Kelly slowly nodded. You'll get it in writing, he said. What's the second thing? Well, I think we made a convincing case in court that Officer Roy Milton was waiting for me that night 4 months ago, I said. His story about the missing license plate is bullshit. I was framed for this, and then I was beaten and nearly killed, while my name and reputation were repeatedly dragged through the mud. The LAPD will never investigate this, but you have a public integrity unit. I will be filing a complaint, and I don't want it mothballed. I want it investigated to a conclusion. This could not have gone down without inside help, and Milton is the starting point. I'm sure there is a link somewhere to Operizio. I'd start with his lawyers, and I want to know what that link is. We'll open a file, Kelly said. We'll investigate in good faith. Then I think we're good, I said. Berg shook her head at my list of demands. Maggie saw me focusing on Berg and put her hand on my arm again, hoping to hold me back. But it was my moment, and I couldn't let it pass. Dana, I know you'll never believe this was a frame, I said. A lot of people won't. But maybe someday, when the feds run this investigation out to the end, they'll take the time to show you where you and the LAPD went wrong. For the first time, Berg turned and looked at me. Fuck you, Holler, she said. You are scum, and no deal you make will ever change that. I'll see you in the courtroom. I want to get this over with as soon as possible. She got up from her seat then and left the room. There was a long silence. I spent most of it with my attention on Agent Ruth. I wanted to help her, but I didn't want to throw her under the bus for having helped me. Are we finished here? Corbett asked, putting his hands on the arms of his chair and pausing before pushing himself up. I have something for the agents, I said. We don't want anything from you, Aiello said. I nodded to Maggie. We have a video, I said. It's got your killer on it. The man who killed Operizio and snuck his body out of the hotel in Scottsdale. We'll get it to you. Maybe it will help. Don't bother, Aiello said. We don't want your help. No, Ruth said. We'll take it. Thank you. She looked at me and nodded. I could tell her words were sincere, and that at least one person in the room did not believe they were setting free a murderer. Chapter 52. An hour later, I was in my suit and stood in the courtroom before Judge Warfield. She had dismissed the jury, but said they could stay if they wanted to, and they all did. Dana Berg had, in a reluctant but carefully worded statement, reported to the court that new evidence of a confidential nature had come to light that exonerated me of the charges. She said the district attorney's office was withdrawing the charge with prejudice and would expunge my arrest record. Maggie McPherson stood next to me, while my daughter and the members of my team stood behind me. Despite an admonishment from the judge to contain emotions, people in the courtroom clapped as the prosecutor finished her announcement. I looked over to the jury box and saw that the Hollywood Bowl chef was one of them. I nodded. I'd had her down correctly on my scorecard. Now it was the judge's turn. Mr. Holler, Judge Warfield said, a grave injustice has been committed against you, and it is the court's sincere hope that you can recover from this and continue your career as an officer of the court and defender of the rights of those who stand accused. Now that you have had this experience yourself, perhaps you will be better suited to serve in this capacity. I wish you all the best, sir. You are free to go. Thank you, Your Honor, I said. My voice cracked as I said it. The magnitude of what had happened in the last 2 hours had left me shaking in my suit. I turned and put my arms around Maggie, then reached back to my daughter. Soon, the three of us were in a single embrace, with the courtroom railing awkwardly between daughter and parents. I followed this with handshakes and smiles, with Cisco and Bosch. I said nothing, because words were hard. I knew that would all come later. Chapter 53. Friday, February 28th. We waited a day before hosting a celebration at the Redwood. By then, the word had gotten out through press conferences and the media that I'd been cleared of all charges and exonerated. It seemed appropriate to gather in the place where all the upheaval in my life had started. There were no invitations and no guest list. It was an open invitation to the courthouse set, with Lorna's company credit card held at the bar for the tab. It got crowded quickly, but I had made sure that the defense team got the big round table in the back reserved just for us. I sat there like a godfather in a mob flick, surrounded by my capos and receiving the well wishes and handshakes of those who had come to the party to celebrate a rare win for the defense. The drinks were flowing, though I maintained my sobriety, drinking orange juice on the rocks, with a few maraschino cherries thrown in for style. Moira, the bartender, relieved at not having to testify, was calling the concoction the Sticky Mickey, and it caught on, though most of the others in the bar were taking theirs with a couple shots of vodka in the mix. I sat between my two ex-wives, Maggie McPherce to my left, and our daughter next to her, Lorna on my right, followed by Cisco. Harry Bosch was directly across the table from me. For the most part, I was quiet, just taking it all in, and occasionally holding my drink up to clink glasses with a friend leaning over Bosch's shoulder to say, "Well done." "You okay?" Maggie whispered to me at one point. "Yeah, I'm great," I said. "Just getting used to it being over, you know. You should go away. Go somewhere and clear your mind of all this." "Yeah, I was thinking of going out to Catalina for a few days. They just reopened the Zane Grey, and it's really nice." "You've been there already?" Online. I wonder if they still have that room with the fireplace we used to get." I thought about that. The memory of when we were together and we'd go to Catalina for weekend getaways. There was a good chance that our daughter had been conceived there. Had I ruined the memory by taking Kendall there? "You should come with me, you know," I said. Maggie smiled, and I saw the shine I remembered so well in her dark eyes. "Maybe," she said. That was good enough for me. I smiled as I looked out at the crowd. They were all there for the free booze, but also for me. I realized I'd forgotten about Bishop. I should have invited him. I then noticed that Cisco and Bosch had their heads together and were talking in serious tones. "Hey," I said. "What?" "Just talking about Operizio," Cisco said. "What about him?" I asked. "You know, why they hit him," Cisco said. "Harry says they had to." I looked at Bosch and tilted my head back. I wanted to hear his take. I had told no one about my conversation with Agent Ruth in the back of Deputy Presley's cruiser. Bosch leaned as much as he could across the table. It was loud in the bar, and not the proper setting for yelling murder theories out loud. "He let personal business get in the way of real business," Bosch said. "He should have taken care of Scales cleanly, whacked him, buried him, put him in an oil barrel and dropped it in the channel. Anything but what he did. He used the situation, whatever it was, to try to settle an old score with you. That was his mistake, and it made him vulnerable. He had to go. And the thing is, he knew it. I don't think he was out in Arizona hiding from you and a subpoena. He was hiding from a bullet." I nodded. The former homicide detective was very close. You think they found him through us? I asked. Followed us out there to him? You mean followed me? Cisco said. Don't feel bad, I said. I sent you out there. About Operizio? Cisco said. I don't feel a thing about that guy. It could have been the way, Bosch said. He could have made a slip himself, told his girlfriend or somebody, made a call. I shook my head. That room service trick, I said. That tells me the hitter knew we were watching him. I think they used us to get to him. I thought of the video the Indians had taken and that I had turned over to Agent Ruth. The room service hitman was white, maybe 40 years old, with thinning red hair. He didn't look menacing. He looked nondescript. He looked like he belonged in the red room service jacket he had used to bluff his way into Operizio's room. Well, too bad, Maggie said. He tried to pin a murder rap on you, Mickey. Just like Cisco, I have a hard time coming up with any sympathy for Louis Operizio. The conversation shifted to speculation about who the federal target was, and most agreed it was probably a corporate mobster, someone from the Las Vegas casino world who had been backing the biofuel play. But all of that was above our pay grade. I could only hope that one day Agent Ruth would call me and say, "We got him." Then I would know the identity of the man ultimately responsible for almost destroying my life. Soon, I was back to just enjoying the moment and watching the people in the bar. Eventually, my eyes fell on a woman standing at the bar, and I excused myself from the table to join her. "Have you tried the Sticky Mickey?" I asked. Jennifer Aronson turned and saw it was me. A broad smile broke across her face. She pulled me into a hug and held me. "Congratulations." "Thank you. When did you get back?" "Today, as soon as I heard. I knew I had to get back here for this." "Once again, I'm sorry about your father." "Thank you, Mickey. How did everything go afterward?" "It was all right. I ended up being nursemaid to my sister who got sick. But you're okay." "I feel fine. But enough about me. Cisco told me that Maggie is a natural-born defense lawyer. That true?" "Yeah, she was great. But it's not going to stick. She's going back to the DA. She's a lifer, I guess. And, you did all the groundwork, Bullocks. I wouldn't be standing here free if you hadn't been there for me." "That's nice to hear." "It's true. Come sit at the table with us. The team's all there." I will. I just want to move around a little bit, say some hellos. So many people are here from the courts." I watched her push through the crowd and start giving friends hugs and high fives. I stepped back toward the bar so I could lean my back against it and take in the whole scene. I looked across the room and realized that few of those in front of me were truly celebrating that I was innocent and had defeated the forces against me. Most of them simply believed I had beaten the case, that I was not guilty by the legal standard, which didn't at all mean I was innocent. It was a moment that seared me. I knew then how I would always be looked at in the courtroom, in the courthouse, in the city. I turned toward the bar and saw Moira. "Can I get you something, Mick?" she asked. I hesitated. I looked at all the bottles lined against the mirror at the back of the bar. "No," I finally said. "I think I'm fine." Epilogue. Monday, March 9th. There were no paper towels or toilet paper, no bottled water, and not a single carton of eggs. I was giving a running commentary to Maggie over my cell, holding the handwritten list she had prepared, with contributions from Haley. So many items on the list were already gone, long gone. I had started just grabbing what I could. "What about pinto beans?" I asked. "I just got 4 cans. We were speaking via my Bluetooth earpiece, leaving both my hands free to grab things from the shelves. "Holler, what are we going to do with pinto beans?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. Nachos? There's nothing here. I just need to get whatever's left, and then we'll have to make do with it. And I still have a lot of stuff at the house. Have you checked the pantry against this list?" I spotted a lone jar of Newman's Own spaghetti sauce on the pasta shelf, but another shopper swooped in and grabbed it first. "Shit," I said. "What?" Maggie asked. "Nothing. I missed out on some Newman's Own." "Just go to produce, see what's left, get stuff for salads, then come back. This is too crazy." Crazy was an understatement. Chaos had descended. But in the midst of it, there was at least a calm center for me. My family was together for the first time in too many years to count. We had decided that the three of us would shelter together until the threat of the virus passed. Even with my home office converted into a bedroom for my daughter, my house had the most space and the biggest buffer zone around it compared with Haley's apartment or Maggie's condo. The nuclear family would ride out the plague together, and now it was down to the prep work. It was my second supermarket stop, the first having been equally disappointing. Still, I had earthquake supplies at the house and a mostly stocked pantry. It was just the wish list my girls had put together that I was missing: red wine, good cheeses, and a few of the ingredients for Maggie's recipes. I managed to fill the cart with things I was sure we would never use, and none of the things that we would. Maggie stayed on with me the whole time. She had gone home with me at the end of the celebration at the Redwood, and we traded sleepovers at each other's place until we settled on staying at my place. The relationship felt new and good, and I often told myself that if the trade-off was 4 months of fear and turmoil to have Maggie back in my life, then that was a deal I'd make any day of the week. "Okay, that's it," I said. "I'm getting in line now." "Wait, did you get orange juice?" she asked. "Yes, they actually had orange juice. I got 2 cartons. No pulp." I looked into the cart at what I had grabbed. "Beggars can't be choosers," I said. "Great," Maggie said. "We'll make do with pulp. Hurry back." "I'm going to hit the ATM and then I'll head home." "Why? You won't need money. Everything's shutting down." "Yeah, well, cash will be king if the financial institutions go down and plastic no longer works." "Mr. Optimistic, you really think that could happen?" "This year proves that anything can happen." "True. Get cash." And so it went. I waited nearly an hour to get through the checkout line. Near hysteria was no doubt upon us now. I was glad to have my family close, though I feared what would happen to us if things got truly desperate. It was so crowded in the parking lot that a car pulled up while I was unloading the cart and waited for my space. "This place is a mess," I said to Maggie. "It's going to get out of hand." The guy waiting was holding up the cars behind him. Somebody honked, but he didn't move, so I tried to go faster, putting the bags into the trunk of the Lincoln. "What was that?" Maggie asked. "Some guy wants my space. He's holding everybody up," I said. I turned my head at the sound of another honk and noticed a man with dark hair and slumped shoulders, pushing a cart in my direction. A black mask covered the lower half of his face. He had only a single brown bag sitting in the cart's child seat. I did a double take, because the bag said Vaughn's, and this was a Gelson's. I looked at the man again, and thought he looked familiar. The way his hands were spread on the cart's push bar, the forward hunch and droop of his shoulders. In that moment I recognized him. The man in the video who was pushing the room service cart into Louis Operizio's hotel room in Scottsdale. His hair was different now, but the shoulders were the same. It was him. I stepped back from the trunk and looked around for an escape route. I had to run. I shoved my cart forward to crash into his, then ran down the length of my car and into the next driving lane. I glanced back over my shoulder as I cut to my right. I saw that he was coming, pulling a gun from the Vaughn's bag as he ran after me. I kept going and cut sharply between 2 more cars and into the next driving lane over. 2 quick gunshots sounded, and I ducked low and kept my feet moving. I heard glass shatter and the impact of the bullet on metal, but I felt no impact to my body. Maggie's voice came sharply in my ear. "Mickey, what's happening? What is going on?" Then there were shouts behind me, punctuated by another car horn. "FBI, freeze!" I didn't know who was yelling at whom, but I didn't freeze. I lowered my head even more and kept running, and then more shots came, this time a loud and fearsome volley of overlapping shots from powerful weapons. I looked back again and saw no sign of the man from the video. I changed angles and saw him on the ground, as 4 armed men and a woman moved in on him. I recognized the woman as Special Agent Dawn Ruth. I stopped running and tried to catch my breath. Only then did I register Maggie's voice in my ear. "Mickey!" I'm okay. What happened? I heard shots." "Everything's all right. The guy from the video, the one who killed Operizio, he was here." "Oh my God." "But so was the FBI. I see Agent Ruth over there. They got him. He's down on the ground. It's over." "The FBI? Were they following you?" Either me or him." "Did you know, Mick?" "No, of course not." "You better not have." "I just told you I didn't. Look, everything's fine, but I have to go. They're signaling me over. I probably have to give a statement or something. Just get home soon, please. I can't believe this." I needed to go, but didn't want to hang up without comforting her. "Look, this means it's over. Everything. It's over. Just come home as soon as I can." I disconnected the call and walked back to where the group was gathering around the man on the ground. He wasn't moving, and nobody was bothering with CPR. Agent Ruth saw me and moved away from the pack, meeting me halfway. "Is he dead?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Thank God." I looked over at the body. The gun I had seen was on the ground next to it. The scene of the shooting was being cordoned off. "How did you know?" I said. "You told me it was over. You said they wouldn't come after me." "We were just taking precautions," she said. "Sometimes these people don't like to leave loose ends. And I'm a loose end. Well, let's just say you know things, and you did things. Maybe he didn't like that. So it was just him? He did this on his own? We don't know that for a fact. What do you know? Am I still in danger? Is my family in danger?" "Your family is fine. You're fine. He probably waited until you were away from the house because your family's there. Just calm down. Give me a day or two to assess, and I'll call you." "Well, what about now? Do I give a statement or something?" "You should just go. Get away from here before people start to recognize you. We don't want that." I looked at her, ever the protector of her case. "How is the investigation going?" I asked. "It's moving," she said, slowly but surely. I nodded toward the body. "Too bad you won't be able to get him to talk," I said. "Guys like him never talk," Ruth said. I nodded, and she walked off. The crime scene was beginning to draw a crowd. People wearing masks, people wearing rubber gloves and face shields. I then went to my car, finding the trunk still open, but my haul of groceries still in their bags intact. I closed the trunk and checked the rear bumper, a habit born of recent experience. The license plate was there, as it should be, its 6 letters announcing my fate and my standing to the world. NTGLTY. I got in my car and drove home to shelter.
This has been a Hachette audio production of The Law of Innocence, written by Michael Connelly, read by Peter Giles, produced by Michelle McGonigal, directed by Dennis Kao, recorded at Literati Audio Studios, post-production by John Colucci. The Law of Innocence is also available in print and as an ebook from Little Brown and Company, a division of Hachette Book Group. For more Hachette audio productions, visit us at hachetteaudio.com. Thank you for listening. Text copyright 2020 by Hieronymus Inc. Audio production copyright 2020 by Hachette Audio. All rights reserved. Hachette Book Group supports the right to free expression and the value of copyright. The purpose of copyright is to encourage writers and artists to produce the creative works that enrich our culture. The duplicating, uploading, and distribution of this audiobook without permission is a theft of the author's intellectual property. If you would like permission to use material from the audiobook other than for review purposes, please contact permissions@hbgusa.com. Thank you for your support of the author's rights. This audiobook is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously, and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events or locales is entirely coincidental.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.